Information. Information could easily be the most valuable thing you have or the most worthless stuff you ever will have, right? So what should you do when you are trying to secure your information? Well, you need to start by actually setting a tag on your different types of information, what's useless, what you really need to have running up with security added, what you doesn't care if it's lost. You need to start to compartmentalize everything so you know that this kind of information is important, this one is not that important, and so on. You need to get to know your own information when you start. And most companies don't know anything about their own information because they have too much. So securing your information also will include get rid of your information, right? You need to clean up, you need to get rid of stuff. But information protection could basically just be put into three main categories you have to think about. We have access to the information, right? We have the identity and how we should be able to reach your information. So we have the access part. The next thing is that we actually need to share the information. If it should be good for anything, we need to share it. And the last and final thing is actually the store itself. And where do you store your information? Hard drive, disk, USB? No, actually you store your information in a file. So the basic storage for information are in a file. So we need to take a look at the file itself and not the disk solution, the blobs, or whatever you're using. We need to make sure that we understand that information are small pieces. We're going to divide the pieces into categories that will make it easier to understand if we are going to protect it or not. And we can also figure out a better way to protect it if we know that we can protect a small part, a file, instead of an entire disk or storage. But if we start in the beginning for most of us, when did you start to protect your information? I think I have the answer for most of you. Whispering games, right? Secrets, you're whispering something to somebody. So it's secrets. And you most likely started when you were age 4. That's the age when kids usually find it intriguing to go around and whisper something and know something that nobody else knows, right? So you start with your whispering games. And after a while, you start to write it down because whispering games will always get told, right? So you start to write it down in your secret diary. So suddenly you have a brother, or I have Alexander over there that sneaks into my hotel room and read my diary, right? And Twitter it out. So that's typical Alexander for you. So what should I do when Alexander starts to bug me and tell everybody what I have in my diary? Well, I use a lemon, right? If you take lemon juice and write, you will not see anything until you heat up the sheet. So that's a nice way of staying secure, right? So tell your CEOs that if they have sensitive information, write it down with lemon juice. They would love it. But going back in history, we'll see that it started with identity. The first cave clans would most likely recognize everybody in their own clan. And if there was somebody else there, they would say, go away. So they started by identity, right? Identity is the core of everything when it comes to security and securing of information. And after a while, we started to figure out that, man, I cannot stay at home just to protecting my diary so Alexander will not steal it. So I figure out I can lock it down. So we find a way of locking your information down. And we have example from 500 years before Christ that somebody actually encrypted information. This clay here is a recipe for a pottery maker on how he did the glassing. So he figured out he had the best glassing around that make the pottery last longer. So he didn't want anybody else to read the recipe, so he encrypted the recipe. So that's quite old, right? So the information are important for some scenarios and unimportant for others, but we need to figure out when should we use the lemon ink, when should we use the clay. So, true art provokes, right? So, secure your information, not your device. How can I say that on a conference and get away with it, right? It sounds really cool to say it. But the reality is, we are not talking that you shouldn't secure your devices. But if you're going back and take a look at what we have as management systems, we have a lot of excellent management systems. We have Active Directory, the old school way of doing stuff. We have Office 365 that have some MDM. We have Intune, we have Jamf, we have Android Enterprise, we have Config Manager, a lot of good tools. But the scary thing is, if you're taking a look at what are supported by the different solutions. As an example, I'm just using Intune here. We can see that Windows support goes back to Windows 7. Okay. There can be a couple of troubles with Windows 7 computers, right? Apple, just back to 9, so that's not too bad. But Android, I love what Android have done the last few years. They had changed everything, but the old management systems still support this guy. They actually support an ice cream sandwich. And a sandwich in the cloud, not so good, right? So ice cream sandwich is the lowest version of Android, the oldest operating system managed by and supported by Intune. When was it released? Well, 2011. There are a couple of versions unsupported after that one, and then you have the old version with still support, and then you have the new versions. So that's the reason why I'm telling you that if your information are really important, like my diary that Alexander always wants to get his hand on, I need to do something else than put it away on my Android 4 ice cream sandwich tablet, right? Because he will always get his hand on that one. So if you have Androids, you have Intune, just make sure that you either go for just for Android Enterprise, if you can do it, or that you go for the allow minimum 7, because 7 is the oldest supported version. And this is just a tip of the iceberg with the problem, because when you're talking about hardware, okay, they have one operating system, but they also have apps. They also have different issues. So that's the reason why you want to most likely go for the Android Enterprise solution. That's really rugged devices made for security. So what's the difference with lost devices and lost data? Well, if you lose a device, even though it have encrypted PIN settings and stuff like that, you are not totally sure that the information haven't got lost as well, right? You need to trust the device to make sure that you can remote wipe it, and you need to get a feedback that it actually have been remote wiped. Or else you need to have something so encrypted that you know that they cannot get it out. And that's the part where the information security comes in play, right? Because if we secure the file itself, then it's easier to lose it no matter where, because it doesn't matter, you cannot open it. But if it's just the device security stopping you from opening it, then you got a problem. So if you have device security to make sure the devices are secured, and all your super sensitive files will have information protection, then you should be good to go, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble. On the right side, we have MDM. On the left side, we have information security. Who will win this knockout fight? Well, I don't know. Because it's not a fight, it's levels and layers. We need to make sure, that's the reason why we put your information in categories, right? You need to know what to secure, what to don't secure, and what to get rid of. Because if you try to encrypt all your information, you will get a lot of big problems. What if you have to reclassify everything you have ever created the 10 last year? You cannot do that, right? So you need to make sure that you have said that this information is okay to have out on any kind of device. This type of information is something we need to protect on themselves. The information itself should be secured. So the first layer is, of course, identity. So identity to make it able to access the information. Second layer is where we store it, or the device, hard drive or phone or what kind of device you have. But the problem with second layer is that information need to get to the second layers or be moved on the second layers. So you need to make sure that you secure the transportation layer as well. So if you have secured your information on encrypted disk or you have locked it down in some kind of lockdown unit, then you think it's safe to just send it with Alexander so Alexander can take it home to Norway, right? But we don't trust Alexander anyways. We need guards to take care of Alexander. But the third layer is much cooler, right? The third layer is just writing down encryption algorithms that make it easier to make it understandable. So one of the older systems was the ROT13, where you actually have the alphabet and just moved 13 spots to the right, and then you could encrypt something. It worked fine when nobody understood it, because they wasn't aware of it. But after a while, people know it. So they went over to the Caesar cipher. And if you can see my Caesar cipher here, I will not even try to say it out loud, but an example would be the bloop here. And I have a decryption tool from Caesar cipher. And if I push the guess, because I don't know, it's not a ROT13. ROT13 will always be 13 keys. But this is a Caesar cipher, so I'm just going to guess and click on encrypt and ignite rocks. Hey. So that's an example for a more easier way of encrypting stuff, right? You need to know the secret used to encrypt and decrypt. But basically, until 1970s, encryption was just something that you had in organizations like governments and the biggest organization. It was first in the middle of the 70s, it was started to be used in ordinary companies, and it would be commercially available, and that's because they had certificates and algorithms that make it hard to de-encrypt. So the difference between old school and modern is that, of course, the identity is now controlled by Azure Active Directory. Your storage have been replaced by something that are encrypted, like BitLocker or disk encryption on your phone or storage encryption or whatever. And we have, of course, a modern way of encrypting stuff, because the cipher tool I was showing you, it would be fun if that was the only thing you needed to decrypt everything you ever got right. So that's the modern thing, but we still have the problem between layers, between the second layers. If you're encrypting your disk, moving to another storage, you still need to make sure that you are using some safe passage. So then we usually use encrypted tunnels or something like that, and we get man-in-the-middle attacks, and we lose information, right? So that's the reason why we are talking about information protection for transportation, for storage, and no matter what, if the files are important, it should be safe all the time, no matter if your tunnels or whatever break down. So a quick recap on levels and layers in Microsoft 365. This is basically the layers: identity, device, and information. And then we are splitting up in basic, extended, and advanced levels. Because you have the layers, you need to think of all the layers, but not necessary that you want everything to be more than basic. Maybe basic MDM is good enough for you. If you protect your information, you can get away with just basic device. Taking it over to Office 365, it will be shared something like this. No, I really annoyed you, right? You take up the camera, hey, it's a good table, and the next part is just showing it even better. And since I'm a Viking, we like to really bother you people, so I did it once more. And for the Microsoft 365 license instead. Just because, so you can see where stuff are. But basically, we can say that when you're going to the advanced, you have the E5 or you have the P2 in Azure Information Protection, right? Everything that's automated, everything that's recommended, everything that gives you bigger information on what's really happening is E5. So, back to information protection. The big problem with information is, what are information? Where do you find information? What kind of information are important for your organizations? Is it emails? Yes, of course. Is it documents, databases, stuff like that? Yes, of course. But in the modern time now, we actually have a bigger problem because we have Teams and other chats, right? So we suddenly start to copy and paste important information and send it out on other channels. So, but if you are taking the fight back with, should we go for device security, should we go for information security, we will see that, okay, if we can contain everything in the cloud or on-premise, you could be quite sure that device protection will be good enough, right? Because things are not being moved that much around. You know where it is, where it should be, and you can just say, you will not be able to work on these files offline. You will not be able to download them, and so on. But we have random location. That's the problem. We have floppy drives. A lot of people here have floppy drives, right? Yeah. You don't know where it could be. So we need to make sure that we will stay secure. If it's in a cloud, we don't have control, or if it's on one of Alexander's floppy drives, or any random location. And that's why I'm saying that device protection is decent if you know where your information are located at all times. But it will always only be device random protection if you cannot be sure where the information can slip off. And to start with everything, you need to clean up your act, right? Information protection will, of course, go into the DLP and the retention systems as well. Because we need to start to clean up our information, we need to start to get rid of information, and we need to do something that's easy. And DLP will make it easier for you to control your information. We have the retention labels. With a retention label, we can start by looking for stuff we will get rid of. One of the nicest thing now is actually you are told that you need to delete information that's older than this if it's this kind of information. So you have no actually the permission to delete information. If you're looking into your file server, you will see that you have files most likely as old as the company itself, or at least as when they started doing it digitalized, right? So now we can actually say that, yeah, but we are necessary for us to delete everything that's related to GDPR if the information is older than this date, this amount of year. And then we have the sensitivity labels that can make it protected and labeled when we have information. We are going to come back to that one quite fast. And then we have the sensitivity info types. We are looking for certain types of information, and you will most likely spend some time creating a rule set of what kind of information should we look for. And you will look for something like Olav-related info. My name is Olav, by the way, right? So we'll make sure that if somebody writes something about Olav, I will have control over it, right? So I just created Olav-related information that search for 2 keywords, Olav sucks. What? And if somebody says Olav sucks, make sure that it's deleted after a week. So you see, it's useful. So, but this is just a funny bit, but the reality is that you need to figure out what should you look for in what combination, how many repeats. So you can actually just go through all your information and I will say these kind of files, don't protect them, but label them. If they are these kind of files, delete them because they are too old. So retention itself, if you set up a rule saying that this file should be protected or this kind of file should be protected for 3 years, depending on the scenario, but in some scenario you can still delete the file, change the file. But you are obligated to keep the file as the original file for 3 years. And that's where the preservation hold library comes in. Because the preservation hold library will make sure that even though the file have changed over the year, the original version will stay there for the 3 year or the time you have set. So that makes it much more secure to know that you have governance over your files, and you can just say that, yeah, we know we have changed this file, but we can document every changes, every version for 3 years back. And another cool thing, the Office 365 Security and Compliance Center is one of the places that should be exchanged with security and compliance. But if they add new features, they actually are adding it to do the old portal. So if you haven't been into the old security and compliance portal, you will see that you now can add connectors. And connectors instant Bloomberg, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So you know what we talked about information. Okay, we can monitor Teams, we can monitor Yammer and stuff like that, but we also now see that we certainly can take in the different kinds of information from our tweets, LinkedIn, and so on. So we can actually stay governance over our social media channels as well. Quite cool, right? And they hide it in the old portal. Nothing in the new, only in the old. And IRM, old school, right? Why should he talk about IRM? It's the old way of securing your files. Well, I will tell you why when I have just done a quick demo. Let's start my document library. IRM I basically used in SharePoint sites. And if we go into SharePoint site, we will see that I have documents, I go into site settings, and I have information rights. Here IRM is information rights management. Going in there, we can see that we have different settings. Open up and see what we can select. Let's give a better view. So we can see that we can say that we don't want any files that are not able to protect by IRM. We can set stop restriction on access to it. We can prevent the document from opening in a browser because we don't trust browsers, right? We would rather trust the clients. And if you download it, maybe it will expire after 7 days, like I set it up here, and you must re-verify your credential every now and then. So yeah, it's old. But it haven't been replaced by information protection. And that's a bit odd, isn't it? Why don't we integrate unified labeling directly into your SharePoint sites? Well, the goal is that a good information protection means that the file itself is self-containable. It have the information it needs to make sure it's secure no matter what size, type of systems protecting it. In IRM, you actually are unprotected when you are at rest in the store for SharePoint. So the file are clear text file, nothing hidden. When you start to use information protection, it will suddenly be encrypted. And with the current version, the current limitation is that if the files are protected, you will not get co-authoring, e-discovery, search, dwell, or other collaboration features. You cannot use data loss prevention except on metadata that's not encrypted. So that's the reason why we need to know that this is here. But I will actually show you something that will make it feasible to survive without IRM, but with IRM kind of like features. And it will be supported at some time, but currently not. So let's take a look at information protection with Azure Information Protection. The first thing we need to figure out is to classify. We need to classify, and the classification is to put it in compartments, right? That type of information, that type of information, and that type should have something more. So classify, we just make sure that we understand the information. It's labeling, right? It's just a way of making sure that if you get this file, you can see in the metadata that it's labeled as internal, but it's not anything else than a label. But the label are useful for indexing, searching, and stuff like that, but also for different types of mechanisms that you can use in the back. We have the protect part. With protect, we actually just encrypt the system. So with encrypting, we certainly have a safe file. So we label some files just to say that we don't need to encrypt this one, but if they are labeled the right way, we can encrypt them if scenarios appear later. So we protect the most important information, and we need to figure out, should we go for the E5 or the E3 license? My advice would always be yes. In most cases, you can manage by using both of them because you want the automation in a lot of your employees, but not necessarily everybody. But a lot of them should have the automation part. If you can afford it, everybody should have E5 because you get more security, right? But if you think you cannot afford it, you should just figure out how much information can we lose and afford losing information instead of buying the right number of licenses on E5. Or P2, that's a cheaper versions. Just buy the AIP if that's the main part you're thinking about. If you want to deep dive, we have a guy down here. I'm not sure if he's in the room right now, but this is a nice blog that takes you into everything information protection that you need to know. So this is totally awesome blogs that will give you how it's protected, why you should protect it, and so on. I have had a lot of help from him making a lot of these slides. So he's an awesome dude. But let's extend our information protection. I have a product called Cloud App Security. Cloud App Security will extend a lot of security features. This is an E5 license, or you need one of the middle license, or just one of the Cloud App Security license. But you should see that I'm now trying to do something of the stuff that we did with IRM, right? Because we need the information to be unprotected when we have it in our stores, our SharePoint sites, OneDrives, and so on. Because then we can share cool work and we can do everything that we need to do. But if you do something else, then we will kick in and do some changes. So I have created some simple policy rules. Let's start with the target information protection. We have one user called Megan. Every Microsoft demo have Megan Bowen, right? We have a user. I'm just going for one user to show you how easy it could be, but I'm going to say that if the owner of file is Megan and the access level doesn't equal internal or private, the reason for internal and private is internal, and then it could be shared with somebody else in the company, and private is not shared with anybody. So I don't want the false positives, right? And I go into the edit and preview result, and I can see that Megan have shared 5 different files, and I can see who she have shared it with. That's quite cool, right? Because just by going in here, we can figure out that the link is shared in public, so that didn't tell us anything, but in other cases, everyone except external users, okay. So you will see more information in here. But the next level will be actually just say that, okay, this is the filter we want. I have seen the result I'm expecting for information, and I don't want her to share these files. So save the filters and say, should it apply to all selected folders or all selected folders with exclusions? If we go into selected folders, we can see we can do this on Box, SharePoint, Dropbox, and OneDrive. That's awesome, right? Because that doesn't mean that you only have to use local SharePoint in your own company. You can actually have both Dropbox or Box or other stuff. So, but let's say all files, all file owners, because it could have been a group. And I have set it up so I get a alert when there are matching rule hits. But only 5 a day because I don't want to get drawn by emails. And we can go down to the governance. And since this was on OneDrive, if we had had Dropbox connector set up, we could have also done the same on Dropbox. But we can say that if she is sharing files, and I can also have add, and those files are internal only, then I would relabel them with another highly confidential, protected, or highly confidential label, right? So I can protect the files when they are being shared, not when you are using it internally, but when it's being shared outside. So certainly you can have an easier security level on your files when they are inside your controlled environment. But if you start to share them outside, you could either go for the reclassification, or you can remove people, or you can put in quarantine, or make private. So you see, you can do a lot of governance stuff if somebody tries to share this. The next rule, just cancel here. The next rule was also a kind of cleanup, anonymous sharing information. Let's see if somebody share anonymous files, activity types equal 10 selected, and everything is creating anonymous links. So I'm just looking for if somebody are creating anonymous links, that will say they are sharing something to anonymous, to everybody. So if somebody do that, we send an alert for me, but I'm also setting up governance where I saying that you should try not to use anonymous sharing. All anonymous share will be removed after 3 days, because I could have created a rule deleting the share, right? So yes, you can create anonymous, but I decide how long they will be available on the network. Just to see the result, we will see that on Megan's PC here. Take a quick look. She get an email saying that you should not try to use anonymous sharing, blah, blah, blah. Exactly the thing I said on the warning, right? So she will get a mail, and she had shared information, but she knows that the information will disappear. That's quite a cool way of doing it, right? Because you can set it up directly in SharePoint if you want to, but I want to have the possibility to do different kind of setting on different kind of people. So one group could be allowed anonymous, but another high-risk user cannot be allowed, right? I think I had one final rule I will show you as well. This one is actually when you have done this for a while and you wasn't aware of how you should do it. So your people have already started to share anonymously. They have a lot of shared common files, but nobody are editing them, right? So they are most likely dead shares, but you don't know it. So this rule will actually say that if access level equals public, the last modified are earlier than 180 days, view results, I have no result at all because I have done this right from the start, right? So just to show you that we will get result, let's put it down to 7 days, and we will suddenly have files that people haven't edited in 7 days. So it's make it possible for us to clean up what people have shared and don't need to share anymore. I will do one more extension of Cloud App Security, and this time I will include conditional access, right? We know that conditional access is a nice feature that you have on your phones, saying that if your phone are not compatible, then you will not be able to do this, right? But that could be a bit harsh, right? Because we have just told you that not all information are important, but the important ones are important. So we need to make sure that we can protect it in a more granular level. So I will just, there, oh, something happened. Or something did not happen, actually. My video is gone. Let's see if we can play it. It's in here. Let's do it this way then. And by the way, it's Alexander's fault, right? Let's play. No. There we go. You can see that I created an MCAS prevent Megan download selected files. So the policy will be a conditional access policy in Intune. We have just selected Megan for the test. So just user and groups, it could be for everybody or it could be for selected roles or selected groups. And we are going to just do it for SharePoint. So the next thing will be that we are using conditional access control as a session measurement, and we are using a custom policy. We could have blocked everything triggering this rule, or we could have monitored, but I'm creating a custom rule. The custom rule will be in Cloud App Security Portal. And in Cloud App Security Portal, I have created a session that says prevent download of OLAF files. And we can see it's basically the same thing, but the rule set will say that if the device are not compliant and domain joined, it will kick in this rule. And if the app is SharePoint and high-risk users. So if you are a high-risk user on a non-supported platform, we want to increase security. But everything else should work. And a high-risk file is, of course, the OLAF files that we only are keeping for a week, right? We don't want to spread rumors about OLAF because it might be true that he sucks. So the rule will just go in and say, if this happens, if file name contains OLAF, a very easy one, we will send a block and we will send you the prevent Megan from downloading OLAF files. So this is the warning you will get up. So what I actually need to do now is just activating this rule, enabling policy, and I'm going to sneak into Alexander's room and borrow his PC because he's borrowing my diary. So then I need to borrow his PC to test out what would it be if Megan was using an unsupported device. And of course, Alexander's device is unsupported, right? So now I'm just trying it on my own computer, going into the HR department's site, and this is a trusted device domain joined. So if I go into sensitive files, we will see that OLAF files are there and I'm able to download it, right? As suspected. Nothing freaky at all because it's within the boundaries. So we know that we can download the file, so let's go over to Alexander's room while he's sleeping. That's the reason why we have the InnoFactor. He's working for InnoFactor. So we are starting his PC untrusted because it's in another domain. So let's do the same thing here. Let's start up by finding the files. Going into the net site, it was HR SharePoint site, documents and sensitive files. Let's just go in and log on as me, or Megan, not me, as Megan. My alter ego is Megan. So what we will see now is that Cloud App Security will take control of your session from the start. If you notice, the first picture we now will get is actually saying that you are monitored, right? Because you should inform your user about stuff like this. So now she knows that this session are monitored, and you will see the link on top would be totally different than if you had gone directly from a trusted device. But going into documents, sensitive files, it's voice control, right? I can just say it and it goes there. Cool. And we have the file Olav files. Let's try to download it. Download, and we get blocked. I will show you the block message quite soon, but just to show you that it works. This is a different file. Download it, and it works. Save as, no problem. So it's just files with Olav in the name, because it was a really simple query, right? But this is the message she actually got up. Prevent Megan from downloading Olav files. So that's what she will get up. It's a message I created. So you don't know that I would have typed in you are on an unsupported device downloading sensitive files. Please go to a compatible device instead, right? So as a sum up, we can just say that information protection will give you the need for different layers, because not everything should be protected. But if we're going for the MDM, the device or application management side of stuff, we know that we can require things like encrypted storage, no sharing, no printing, no forwarding and stuff like that. But we still trust ice cream, right? We still support ice cream sandwich if we do not set it up the right way, or if some manufacturer have some trouble with their applications or stuff like that. If we are going the other way, we will go for information protection, and we know that it's platform agnostic. So no matter what, the file itself will be protected, as long as we are aware of the limitations. So there are limitations, and that's the reason why I showed you that Cloud App Security can do a lot of cool stuff with information protection. Among them, it can actually make sure that you can set it up using Azure Information Protection when you need it, and just be labeled when you don't need it, right? So levels and layers is the key. We don't want to say, no, we don't need security on the devices. But if the information is highly secure or sensitive, we need to make sure it's protected the right way. And a device cannot protect it the same way as the file itself can be protected. So that's just about my time. I have 1 minute and 18 seconds. Any question, or do you want just to come up here and ask me question person to person? I will put out everything on my blog. If you need the videos and stuff like that, it should be there already, so you can get whatever. So send me a line, follow me on Twitter. I usually try to answer. So thank you so much.